Guides, my name is Andy Jennings, and I'd like to give you an overview of the calendar page in the Prenda school administration site. So, the calendar page is important because it allows us to calculate the number of educational hours that happened at a given school on a given day. So, the way that we do that is by calculating how many students attended on a given day multiplied by the number of hours that the school ran on that day. So the calendar page allows us to do that. If you go to the calendar page, you'll see that the user interface is a calendar. It goes from August 2018 all the way through June 2019. So the whole school year, it shows us on one page, and we can see a number on each day. So the number can mean one of two different things. It can either mean attendance if you're in attendance mode, or it can mean the number of school hours if you're in school hours mode. So for instance, take this day of August 15th. If 6 students attended and school went for 4 hours, then we know that there were 24 hours of education that happened. That's a number that we submit to the state government, and the state government pays for that, and then that allows us to pay the guides for that number of school hours. So it's important that we calculate that number of school hours correctly, and the calendar page is what allows us to do that. So in attendance mode, both of these numbers, attendance and school hours, are adjustable. You can go in as a guide and you can adjust these numbers for accuracy. So in attendance mode, if you click on a given day, it shows you off to the right the list of students who was present on that day and who wasn't. So the system automatically marks a student as present if they logged in to coins.prenda.co on that day. So hopefully most of these numbers are accurate. But if a student was accidentally marked as present, maybe they were sick and they stayed home and they still got out a computer and logged into coins.prenda.co and the system marked them as present, you can uncheck that student in the name of accuracy. If a student is sick like that and still did a little bit of educational activities, it's best to not mark them as present for school, but put in that extra time as bonus time. So if Ava was sick and logged in from home and I want to take her off as present, I can click here and it'll uncheck that box and it'll change the number on August 15th immediately for me. I can also add her back in, and if someone was present but didn't get marked as present, I can check those people off too. So you can edit the attendance by going and clicking on any given day in attendance mode and making sure that the right people were marked for attendance. In school hours mode, you can see the whole year at a glance, and you can set the number of school hours that have happened or are supposed to happen for any given day of the school year. So you can see this school started out August 15th and went through October. They were doing 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. They took an October break. And then starting on October 29th, they changed to 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. And you can see how they planned out the rest of their school year. Christmas break, spring break, going through May 9th, 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. So the way that you set school hours on a given day is make sure that the correct number is selected over here for the number of hours to set. If I want to set a day to have 4 hours on that day, I click the 4 and make sure 4 is selected, and then I just click on that day and it'll put 4s on that day for the number of school hours. If I'm going to have 5 hours of school that day, or I did have 5 hours of school that day, I can click on the 5 and I can set those days as 5s. It works on weekends also. Attendance also works on weekends for the few schools that do some Saturday hours or even some Sunday hours. But this school doesn't have any time on the weekends. So you can go through your whole school year and you can plan out the number of hours that you're going to have school on each day throughout the school year. And that's a useful thing to do. This school hours mode will highlight some days in red if they might need attention, right? This 13th is highlighted because no educational hours are going to be logged, but some students attended, or some students are marked as having attended. So I want to take a look at that day and see what happened. Maybe I forgot to mark school hours and we really did have school. So days will be red if students attended but there's no school hours selected, or if there are school hours selected and no students attended. So if I mark 5 hours on the 10th but no students attended, then it turns red to draw my attention to that square. Red squares may not be a problem like on the 13th, for this particular school, that was orientation day. Parents came, they got computers, they set up accounts for their kids, they logged into coins.prenda.co, so the system thinks that all those students attended on that day, but they really didn't. So I'm going to leave them as marked as attended. As long as I don't put any school hours on that day, it's not a big deal. No one's going to claim that education happened on that day, and Guide's not going to get paid for education on that day since it didn't happen. So that's a red day, but that's fine. I've looked into it. I know that attendance happened, but there was no school on that day. Also, a couple of my students logged in over Christmas break from home. They just wanted to check their points or whatever. So that's fine. I'm just not going to put attendance hours on those days, and then it won't get counted. It won't get counted for attendance or for educational hours. So alternatively, you could go in to attendance, you could find those days, and you could uncheck those students if you wanted. But either way, as long as you don't have school hours on those days, it's not a problem if attendance is logged. But for days where you do have school hours, it's pretty good idea to take a glance at this calendar and make sure that attendance is correct in general for most of those days. You could, in theory, use this calendar page to, at the end of the month, go back and look at the month and look at attendance and put in how many educational hours you had on each day of the month. But it's much better to plan in advance, to plan out the whole school year. If you do plan out the whole school year, then you have the advantage of this planning tool off to the right that we've designed. This school, for instance, is planned to go through May 9th, which says the system can calculate that they're going to have a total of 630 school hours throughout the year, of which 515 are completed. So the system knows that they're 81.7% of the way through the school year. So with that 81.7%, we can look at the total number of hours that each student has, and this is the attendance plus the bonus hours that each student has, and we can divide by that 81.7%, and that tells us the pace of each student, or how many hours we're expecting them to get at the end of the school year. In this case, I've put in goals for each student. This goal actually should come from the state, because there's a maximum number of hours that they'll pay for each student for the year, and you want to be sure to get over that number of hours if you can for each student. So in this case, this school in fact has planned to go through May 9th specifically because this student, Rachel Patterson, that's what's going to get her to her goal of 712 hours this year. And that can be adjusted if they get to May and she's had a couple extra absences or done more bonus time, then they may take May 9th off or add May 13th in order to get Rachel her bonus hours, or her total educational hours for the year. But it allows you to kind of have an estimate and plan out the year and see where you're going. So these goals come from the grade that the student is in. The state stipulates that for certain grades, there are a certain number of educational hours that can be paid out for each student. And it also depends on if a student transferred mid-year from a charter or public school, then these hours need to be prorated. So because part of the education funding goes to the charter or public school, and part of the education funding can go to Prenda. So I put in these goals manually. If you'd like goals put in for your students, then please contact us and we'll figure out exactly what goals we can put in for your students, and then you can use this planning tool to make sure that they're on pace to hit their goals for the end of the year. If you do make any changes to the calendar hours, the school hours for a given day, you need to click this save button in order to save those hours. That allows you to come in here. It's mostly useful, in February or something, to decide what if I took a 2-week spring break and went longer into May, then how many hours are my students going to get, type of thing. So if you don't like how that looks, you can cancel and the calendar will go back to how it was, but it's a tool to let you experiment with the calendar a little bit, and then if you're happy with the changes, you click save. But please be sure to go into the calendar page, take a glance at your attendance occasionally, and then make sure these school hours are really accurate, the number of hours that you're going to have of school on a given day, so that we can accurately calculate the number of educational hours. We can submit that to the state, we can get the guides paid correctly, and then check out this planning tool and see how your students are doing on their outlook for the year. Please let us know if you have any questions or if anything's inaccurate about the calendar page. It's really there to help us quickly and easily and accurately calculate the educational hours for the year, and also to be a benefit and help to the guides in planning out their year. So let us know if you have any questions or ideas for this page.